welcome to yet another episode of Girls Talk. I am your host, Isatu and Bokum. Today we're going to be talking about gender roles versus sex roles. How do they differ? That is something you all are going to find out. And I have with me Kemo Bojang. Kemo Bojang is a community activist and is going to join me in this very crazy discussion because so many people get it wrong when it comes to these two words, the sex roles and the gender roles. Welcome to the discussion, Kemo Bojang.
Thank you very much, Isatu.
Thank you. Girls Talk is a show that we talk about issues that are affecting girls in our community, and we try to lay down possible solutions to make sure that the problems that these girls face are solved. So, Kemo, can you please tell us in depth what you think about gender role and sex role?
Gender roles have to do with what the society has, is a social construct. But once you talk about sex, it's about the biology that we're talking about here. And for us as Africans and for us as people of this continent, roles have been placed on sexes or on genders since the beginning of time, where people were seen as the men are providers and the men are protectors, while as the women are the holders of the community, and then women are the people that give back to leaders. But when it comes to, but now, in our own time, because societal constructs change through time and space, now we're at a time that gender roles are not really that strong anymore, because we've come to, because these cultures are made by people, cultures are made by human beings that live in a certain society at a certain time. Now we are at a point where we don't really hold gender roles that much. All right, some still do, but at some point you realize that these roles are made by people and they can be changed. And now, for example, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, what would have been for a woman to do, now men do it. And what would have been for a man to do, now women do it. Today we have men who are chefs. Today we have men who are laundry, they do laundry as a business. Today we have soldiers who are women. And then during prehistoric times, men were supposed to be the soldiers. Men were supposed to be the protectors, but today we have women who do these things, and today we have men that do things that society has placed on women to do. Yeah.
Kemo, do we see that most, like you said, most men are now taking up roles that actually were meant for women before, according to how our society tabled them. But we still see a kind of a discrimination against such men or maybe such women that take up roles that are not what that the society think is not meant for them. Yeah. So, and most times I'll just put it as it's lack of the education and the sensitization part.
Well, I think when you talk about education and sensitization, it depends on what we define as education. And these are things that are very subjective depending on where we and from what perspective we're looking at it from. I think, yes, education has to do with it, but I think it's a new phase that's coming in. It's a global change, and people, and when you talk about globalization, people look at it as westernization in a way. We have to agree that we live in a society that is very patriarchal. And these things have to do with men being able to, because men in our part of the world, men are leaders, and men make the rules. So men are able to give out certain, roles to each section of society. Men have been able to give these things to men that you're supposed to be the leader, you're supposed to do these things that have to do with might and strength. So now if a man is seen doing something that is not in that distinction, the man is seen to be weak, or the man is seen to be somebody who cannot fulfill his destiny in his society. So this is why it has a stigma attached to it. This is why it has a well, I won't call it a stigma, but this is why it has a concept attached to it. Yeah.
Is when it comes to girls, most times even at the point of marriage, you get to see men that they will be threatened with what they find their wives or maybe their fiancés that they're yet to marry are doing. And there are some girls that are subjected to the point that they have to maybe quit their job. Let's say I'm supposed to get married to Kemo Bojang, and Kemo Bojang knows that Isatu is this kind of a person that does what somebody will be like, wow, you are not supposed to be doing that according to society. But at the end of the day, Kemo will be like, Isatu, you have to quit your job. I will take care of you. We have seen instances, so many marriages end up to that phase.
Yeah.
What do you have to say?
I think it has to do with insecurity. And we have to, as a man, I'm not a feminist, but I have to agree that people with power are insecure. And this is something that it's about, in general terms, I might not see it that way, but we call it dissection, or it's a theory of the oppressed and the oppressor. And once the oppressor sees that the oppressor is gaining momentum, they feel threatened. And in a general, not all men are like this, and not all women are like this. And I agree, it's a two-way thing. But once men see that a woman is an overachiever, a woman is somebody, and this woman is somebody who's doing really well in what she believes in, and then they feel threatened by it.
To say most relationships are lost because of the same insecurity.
Definitely. So this has played a very big part in our society, that men actually want to go for somebody that they can control. And because it all goes back to the gender rules we're talking about, because our society has taught us that men should be the leaders. And if I'm a man and I'm married to you, for example, so I am earning something, let's say, between a lower margin, and then you're earning something between a higher margin. There are circumstances that my friends would tell me that your wife is wearing the trousers in the home because she provides. But this has also put so much pressure on men that it goes to a point that I think it has contributed to our living standards as people, and our life expectancy as men. It has really dropped because we have so much built in, and we have so much building in that we don't express it, because society has told us that you have to be that macho person, you have to be that strong person, that you don't have to show your weakness, you don't have to show that you have emotions. At some point it boils up so much that your heart stops working, because your spirit is keeping it in, and you are not being able to express it. So because society has told you that you have to provide, you have to be the winner, you have to be the protector, you don't have to show your weakness, you don't have to show your emotions, because you are a man. And you grew up with that. Yes, it goes to a point that, if you cry as a man, you are seen as weak, but it's fine for women to do that. So, it all plays a part, and this has gone where that women who are seen as achievers, who are seen as strong, are being threatened, are a threat to men. If women can give birth to leaders, why can't women be leaders? So these are the things that we have to look at. And I have no problem with a woman being a leader, but it has to be a woman that will be able to do it. It's just not having a woman there. Just because it's a woman. Yeah. So I think parents need to be able to let their children, when they get to an age where they start having interest, let them follow their interest, if it will be detrimental to their lives. Yeah. And to say there was this time, I was at home at night, and I came back from work late that day, and my mom was like, Isatu, you have to cook dinner today. And whilst making dinner, it was time to go to the shop and get bread. Then my brother was like, when my mom sent him, he was like, how can you be sending me when these girls are here? And I was like, you have to move out of my sight, because you're the same people that bring about the same gender and sex rules issue. Okay, now I'm cooking dinner, so you go get bread. So it's always an argument in the home. And whenever that comes into play between siblings, the moms are just there, or the dads are just there, and be like, you don't have to, you don't have to but then exactly, this is what I was saying earlier. I think this is something that society has placed, that, for example, women are supposed to cook. Well, I enjoy cooking. I love cooking, because I think cooking is an art, because it's magnificent, adding everything together to come up with one thing, But like I was saying, if some of my friends hear that, see me cooking, they're like, why are you cooking when you have sisters who are supposed to cook? These are things that society has planted in our minds. But that's what we were talking about. But again, our parents just continue doing these things because they found their parents doing it. So this is why it is important that we have conversations, and that we have truthful. It will be bitter, because nobody loves to lose your power. And at some point it's gonna be a bit challenging, but like I keep saying, it's not a competition. It's about complementing each other between men and women. I don't see why we need to be seeing it as a competition, and this is for both sexes. Because at some point you realize that people that also fight for women's rights or girls' rights are a bit aggressive in how they do things. To that part, I think I've heard people saying the same thing, that advocating or maybe being an activist for women, you have to also look at the part of the men.
Because if you want to empower a woman, there is no way you're going to do that so well without having the men come in.
I mean, like, it's a community. We live together. So you cannot empower one section, although society has already empowered us, but you cannot empower another section while leaving one section out. It's like working together to have a common goal.
Main reason why we have men like you on Girls Talk to talk about these matters. So just to say, it's not all about having the girls come and talk about their problems, but also to have the perspective of the men and the guys to know what they think about certain issues that are affecting the girls in the society.
I think this is something that's really important because approach is really very critical when it comes to advocacy. And not just advocacy, but anything you're doing, approach is really important because we're talking about, we live in a part of a world where this has been here for ages. You know, it's historically backed. It's, you know, it's religiously too. We have been able to use religion as a, to back it. So you're talking about people that have a belief system in this. You don't just come one day and tell them that what you've been doing is barbaric. And then, you know, it's a phase. And you have to be patient enough. And don't look at and you have to have a sense of, you know, relativity. Because this is the problem I see here today. That people from urban Gambia try to change the lifestyle of people in rural Gambia when you don't live their lives. And you cannot change the lives of or a narrative of people when you don't understand how they survive. So I think this is why it is important that we have community-based advocacy. We have community-based groups that we work with because they live in these communities, they know these communities, and they will be able to come up with meaningful, sustainable solutions to these problems that are in these communities. So I think these are things that, you know, I think, you know, this girl talk is something that needs to be encouraged more, and you have different stakeholders come on board and talk about things that they think would, you know, definitely,
Well, this has been an interesting topic, and it has been lovely to have you on this discussion, Kemo. Thank you so much for
you too. Thank you
very much for watching yet another episode of Girls Talk. I am your host, Isatu and Bokum, and join us for more episodes. Please subscribe and like our YouTube channel, Girls Talk Show, in order for you to have more shows and other episodes coming up.